Before we get started, I wanted to give a special shout out to Bodie Grimm for giving us some great feedback on the podcast that we're going to be implementing over the next few episodes. If you have feedback that you'd like to give to the podcast, remember, you can contact us at virtualtailgate@mediabullcrap.com. Now, on to the show. You're listening to Season 14 of the Virtual Tailgate, a Media Bullcrap production covering college football in the Atlantic Coast Conference. I'm Andrew.
I'm Jeff.
And I'm Jared.
David is off tonight, but he'll be back with us next week. Be sure to join the tailgate on Facebook at Virtual Tailgate or email us at virtualtailgate@mediabullcrap.com.
All right, well, it is time for the Walking Taller, Feeling Taller Tacova Players of the Week. And speaking of Tacovas, got a little bit of a shout out this week to one Mike Norvell. You might think that a 1-6 record is not worthy of a Tacova's work boots. Walking taller, feeling confident, but nonetheless, this is a career achievement for one Mike Norvell. 1-6 start to the season. Mr. Mike Norvell, you are about to enter the apex, the zenith, the summit, may I say, the mountaintop, the exclusive club, joining the likes of Jimbo Fisher, Gus Malzahn, Charlie Weiss, Willie Taggart, and none other than the ACC's own Bobby Petrino. We're going to get out in front of the dysfunctional dictation of one Judge Jared and Mike Norvell, an early welcome to our dream job, the Fired Football Coaches Club.
Hear, hear.
But all right, nonetheless, so Mike Norvell may not have done much that was worthy of game balls this week for Tacova's work boots. He's working his way out of Tallahassee here, but I think there might have been some good football played nevertheless. Andrew, you want to lead us off?
Yeah, so rookie C.J. Bailey, the quarterback for the NC State Wolfpack, led his team to an impressive 1-point victory over Cal. C.J. had 36 pass attempts on the week. 25 were completed. That was good for 306 yards and 2 touchdowns. He had 0 interceptions. Usually we don't call that kind of thing out, but Cal is one of the best intercepting teams in the league right now. And so for Bailey and company to pull off a clean week, no interceptions against such a strong defense, such a strong pass defense, is truly impressive, especially for a rookie. So props to CJ Bailey and the NC State Wolfpack. Jared?
Well, my game I was going to go to Bayshaw 210, the running back from Virginia Tech. He had 18 carries for 266 yards on the ground for 3 touchdowns, and then 1 in the air as well on a 20-yard reception. So 4 total touchdowns. He's got 14 so far this season with Virginia Tech, which is the 6th most in program history for a single season. He also set the single-game Hokie rushing record, and also was the most yards so far this year on the ground against any Power 4 opponent this season. So kudos to the running back.
David let us know that we should, of course, include Cam Ward in any discussion of players of the week, and that we're not going to talk about his stats at all, but that we're only supposed to play this.
I'm the best player in the country. I'm humbly saying that, and I'm confident saying that.
Amen, brother.
Jeff?
Well, there's certainly not a lot of evidence to dispute Cam Ward's self-coronation as the best player in the country, but there was other good football played, and nonetheless, the Duke Blue Devils played a really, really good game against the Florida State Seminoles in dropping Mike Norvell to that 6th loss on the season. Solid performance from the Duke D overall. If I have to pick a player, I have to give it to Chandler Rivers. Had a pick 6 off Brock Glenn that led to a touchdown and the margin of victory for the Duke Blue Devils in that 23-16 victory. But overall, defense had a solid play. Defense is definitely a team effort side of the ball. Had a fumble and a second interception, 2 more turnovers to set up a short field goal and a 36-yard TD drive on a day in which the off of the Blue Devils really stalled, only 180 yards of total offense en route to what I believe is Duke's first ever win over Florida State.
All right, Jeff, well done. And now we're moving on to our next section of the podcast, and this is the Power Rankings, which are brought to you by this special parody service announcement from the Virtual Tailgate. This past week, we had a Twitter, now known as X, user post a question directed at a very popular podcast and a very popular sports broadcaster that are both on a very popular sports network.
None of those are us, by the way.
Exactly. Which, to paraphrase, the question was, if you clog a toilet at someone's house party and there's no plunger, what do you do? Our podcast advice to you: easy peasy lemon squeezy. Go ahead and take off all your clothes and shoes. Then go ahead and stomp on that mud brick like it's a bunch of grapes during winemaking season in Europe. Then royal flush that loaf down until it's gone. At this point, the turd goblin has been summoned to the depths of duty hell. Then jump in the shower or hand wash yourself with soap or body wash until you are pristine clean. Lastly, put your clothes back on and strut out of that potty knowing not only did you avoid disaster, but you may have saved the party and the world. And if anyone says there's an aroma around you, rest assured it's a stench of success and nothing more. The more you know.
I have
Shit.
so many questions.
It was a question posted on a very popular podcast that's on a very popular sports television network channel. I saw
it, but I want to. But what do you do with your clothes? Like how?
We don't have time to inspect this now. Power rankings, Jared. Power rankings.
But how? How?
Jeff, the problem's resolved, okay? That's all that matters. Top 5 power rankings here on the Virtual Tailgate. Number 5, we have Louisville dropping a spot after their devastating loss to Miami, 52-45. That's not the correct record because they've lost more than 0 games in the conference, so I'm not going to repeat that. Number 4 is SMU, moving up a spot in the power rankings after their 31-10 win over Stanford. The Mustangs have a lot to play for here in the next few weeks, including possibly getting closer to that title shot in the ACC. Number 3, speaking of title shots, the Pitt Panthers. They did not have a bye. I know they won a game this past week. They're undefeated, though, so that's good. Number 2, Miami. Mentioned that loss, that Louisville lost to Miami. This is what they do. Miami's still undefeated. They are on track to play for the title game. And number 1 in our power rankings is still Clemson after the 48-31 win over UVA. The Tigers are still undefeated in conference play. At the bottom 3, we have Wake Forest. After the 23-20 win over UConn, they did not drop a spot in our power rankings because, well, they did win for once. Number 16, Florida State. They actually moved up in our power rankings by 1 spot after their loss to Duke to 23-16, their first loss ever to Duke. And at number 17, last but not least, dropping a spot and claiming dead last in our power rankings is the Stanford Cardinal. They had a terrible, rough loss against SMU. It's just a long season right now, and honestly, there's only so much Rock can say, but this is it.
The Rock says they kept you at the bottom of the barrel because you absolutely suck.
Jeez. Yeah.
Yep.
And honorable mention, I did see this here. We're going to mention Cal's kicker, Derek Morris, missed a 28-yard field goal in the final minute of a 24-23 loss to NC State. And the poor guy's had a very long, rough season. He has missed numerous game winners. We don't want to kick a kicker down, but George?
He clambered up, looked in, and nearly fell off in surprise.
Someone defecating.
I guess it could be saved mostly for just Cal in general at this point, but man, it has been a rough few weeks for the football fans down at Berkeley.
I mean, just before we move on, I didn't realize how hard the last month had been for the Golden Bears of Cal, but they've lost 4 games in a row. A team that had started off 3-0, and we had kind of sort of picked as an early, maybe they're not. Maybe they're better than we thought they were, and they still might be, but they've lost 4 games in a row to drop to 3-4. But I think those 4 losses are by like a combined 9 points. In the last 4 games, and missed field goals obviously are a key big difference between 3 and 4, and being 5-2 or 6-1. So certainly been a tough stretch for them.
Our resident quality analyst got yet another thing wrong. Pitt was in fact on a bye this past week and held their spot, which means that they deserve a little bit of Gatorade.
Get some Gatorade, man. Enjoy your day.
They didn't get an FU award. I've checked it in 2 places. I don't know what you're on about, Jared. So
Louisville's lost a couple games in the conference. They're not 2-0.
Well, yes, that is correct, but you said Pitt didn't have a bye. All right.
Eh.
Well, before we get to the games of the week, did you know that the number of missions that was flown by the Space Shuttle Discovery was 39? But more importantly, the very first flight that it took in 1984, it orbited the Earth 34 times. By comparison, the most famous space shuttle that was ever put into service, the Space Shuttle Enterprise, orbited the Earth exactly 0 times because it never left the Earth's atmosphere.
And neither did Challenger. What's your point?
Jared, we weren't going to bring that up. I might have to edit that out.
Oh, gee.
Moving on to moving on to the first game of the week here. Gosh, you can bring it down.
Andrew.
Oh my gosh! All right. Moving on to the first game of the week here. We've got Syracuse at Pitt on Thursday night. This is a game that started out with Syracuse with Pitt having a slight 3 in the hook advantage, just a little bit better than the typical home field advantage. It's moved all the way to a Pitt -6 advantage as the betting has continued on for the past day and a half or so. Pitt currently ranked 19th overall in the top 25 rankings. Pitt still, as Jared said, even though he thought they played last week, sitting at 6-0, 2-0 in the ACC. Syracuse has that one ridiculous loss to Stanford, marring their ACC record, but still very much in the mix. Both of these teams for potentially being candidates in the championship here. Guys, I'm taking Pitt to cover this spread because the spread has moved more in Pitt's favor. But I see both of you are taking Syracuse to cover on what is an incredibly tight spread. You're not getting that 6 now. You're getting just that 3.5. Why are you so high on Syracuse traveling into enemy territory, the same team that lost to Stanford?
Because Pitt still hasn't done anything that makes you really think they're going to win by more than a field goal against a competitive team. Syracuse is competitive. The quarterback play is solid up in Syracuse right now, and it's coming down to Pitt. And I understand, playing in a different environment, or I won't say hostile environment. Have you been to a Pitt game? They don't exactly sell out for the students there. And it's not their fault either. They have to travel 30 plus minutes, I think, from their university campus to get to the stadium. It's just hard for them. And I just don't think it's going to be that awful of a place. I mean, the weather looks like it's going to be okay. So the conditions seem favorable for an indoor team to come play outdoors. And the offense can move up and down the field. I think Syracuse, honestly, has a great chance to win this football game, honestly, outright. But I was just playing it safe and taking the points. And, I mean, I would definitely take the points now at Syracuse +6. I just think McCord is got enough to really take this team across the line. And I think at the end of the day, that Stanford game was a bit of a fluke.
Yeah, this is a game that so I think you kind of hit on a little bit. Well, this is where my head was at for this game is that this is a Pitt team that, despite their 6-0 record, I'm not saying they haven't done any. I'm not going to be quite as critical as Jared has been about the Panthers, but this is a team that every week we feel like we're walking on eggshells with them because we're always waiting for them to come back to earth, for them to lay the egg. They never seem to put teams away, and you can look at what they've done through this 6-0 start, and a lot of those games have been very, very tight games. That's just the types of games that they play. That defense is susceptible to giving up points and giving up big plays. The offense, obviously, with Eli Holstein, the transfer, is kicking on all cylinders. He is every much the part of a top tier ACC quarterback. But then the Orange have transfer Colin McCord as well. So two of the premier quarterbacks, I think, shocker that they're up there this year, are in this game. But I can't buy even -3.5. I don't normally take a -3.5 when I think the team could actually still win the game. Is actually going to come out on top. But this is one where you give me 3.5 points. Pitt's propensity to play close games, I think there's a decent chance that Syracuse even wins this game. I'm gonna take the Qs plus 3.5. That's a secondary in Pittsburgh. Neither one of these teams has all that great of a secondary, but this is a secondary in Pitt that is more susceptible than the Orange's secondary. So I am interested to see how this game goes. I think it's probably going to be high scoring, but you give me the options. I think Kyle McCord may be able to take a little more advantage of the Panthers defense than Holstein is of the Syracuse secondary in this game. But either way, Pitt hasn't put teams away. -3.5. I could see the Qs winning outright, but I'll take the 3.5 point buffer and just do the Qs plus 3.5 in this one.
All right. Well, moving on to our big ACC Friday night matchup, we've got Louisville headed to Boston College to take on the Eagles. Both of these teams already have 2 losses. That puts them about a tier down in terms of teams who are trying for the championship. Anybody who's already got 2 losses, if they take one more, they're certainly not going to be there. It's really hard to even imagine a 2-loss team making it into the championship right now, unless it ends up that everybody's a 2-loss team except for Miami. Louisville opened the betting here at a -6.5. They are now sitting at -7.5, and it looks like we're all on the side of the Cardinals right now, either by spread or at least by money line. Jared, tell me why you think Louisville is not only going to win, but win by at least a touchdown.
Because Boston College has looked terrible. They really have not looked good in the past few games. The Eagles look like they are a bit of a mess. Kind of like how I think everyone thought they would look at the beginning of the year. But they lost to both Virginia teams. Virginia Tech, they only had one good quarter. I mean, literally one good quarter. They dominated Virginia Tech in the third, but you took that outside. They got their ass kicked in quarters 1, 2, and 4. UVA, they looked like they had zero control against the Wahoos down in Charlottesville. And yes, another coming back home from Virginia, from the state of Virginia, be back where they are more comfortable at Chestnut Hill. But the thing is, Louisville is just honestly a better team. The Cardinals have hung around with tough teams like SMU, Notre Dame, and now Miami. Boston College, who have they really played? Michigan State? Yeah, they played Missouri and they lost. I just don't think Boston College is honestly that good. I think they have finally been kind of exposed to what many thought they were this year. Just a team rebuilding under Bill O'Brien, the new head coach. I think Louisville comes up to Chestnut Hill with Tyler Shaw, their quarterback game, their good rushing attack, their good offensive line play, all of that jazz. And I think they just take care of Boston College through all 4 quarters and honestly win this game by at least 2 scores.
Yeah, I honestly think that we were high on Boston College early on because they came out of the gate and beat what was then a massively overranked number 10 Florida State team. I think that looking at the way that they played since then, it's not that they're bad. It's just that Florida State was never that good, so they didn't deserve the credit that they were getting for that victory. They certainly have not shown it. Generally, a team that beats a normal Florida State team should not be losing to Virginia in the middle of the season, much less putting up a competent fight against Louisville. Jeff, I see you did not actually pick the money line. You took Louisville with the spread as well. I'll let you add in any extra flavor you want to add there as well.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a whole lot to add on this one. I think you all did a good synopsis on it. I think Jared, your head was exactly where mine was. Same record for these two teams, but Louisville, the losses are they've really played pretty tough schedule so far. I mean, you can obviously argue that good teams win some of those, but their loss is nothing to be embarrassed about by the margin or taking the L in those matchups. Contrary, Boston College just has not looked good. I mean, you take away basically from the halftime of that UVA game where they were up, I believe it was 14-0. Just a team that has looked out of sorts for the last 6 quarters. None of their said Andrew that Florida State win was fool's gold to start the season. So nothing to really hang your hat on for the Eagles. So it does feel like this is going to be a tough game for Boston College to keep close. And I think it's a little bit of a danger if you're thinking long term. Where does the season go for the Eagles? Because they started off with that nice record, getting off to that 4-1 start, and it feels like things could start to go downhill if they don't right the ship a little bit in the next couple of weeks. But I agree with you guys. I think this is a game. You give me a touchdown with Louisville, and I think they certainly should be able to cover that.
Which means since we all three of us picked it, congratulations on your bounce back win, Boston College.
As is tradition.
All right, and then wrapping it up, we've got the final game of the evening on Saturday for the ACC on the good old ACC network. We've got SMU headed to Durham to take on the Duke Blue Devils. SMU currently ranked number 22 in the league. This line opened at a 10-point spread for the Mustangs. It has now grown to 11.5. And SMU is, again, undefeated in the ACC. They've just got that one non-conference loss against BYU, of all teams, where their offense really just seemed to disappear for a week. But otherwise, they have been a high-powered offense, a really fun team to watch thus far. Looks like we've got a bit of a split here. I'm taking SMU to cover this spread because except for that game against BYU, that's what SMU has done. Jeff, you're doing the same.
Yeah, this is maybe a little bit of a combination of still I guess we're kind of in the show me state of the ACC season. It feels like we've got some teams that we've talked about in this rundown that have really, really good records, even teams that are ranked in the top 25 that we're just struggling to fully buy into. And I think the Duke Blue Devils are another one of those. Myself and David both picked Florida State on the money line last week against the Blue Devils, and but for the defensive performance of the Blue Devils, truly could have turned out a different way for the Blue Devils in that game and not had them come out with the victory. I think the big thing that turns out here is how does Malik Murphy recover from that game? Had by far his poorest performance going up against a defense that was really the first defense he's played all season. Now SMU's defense is not going to be anything that you're going to get that you're going to have nightmares about at night, but still really an underwhelming performance that he had against the Seminoles in that game. Only passed for I think 70 yards, like maybe it was like around around 50% completion percentage. Really struggled in that game, but overall he's put up a lot of big numbers on the season. Contrary, SMU, the reason why I picked them in this matchup is that they are just putting up points galore. And while I've seen some good things out of the Blue Devils in spurts this year, this Mustangs offense, if they go up against any team that does not have a solid defense, and I'm still suspect on how solid the Blue Devils defense is, this is a Mustangs offense that just seems to put up points and blow through the spreads week after week, for the most part recently, and until the Vegas lines catch up to it and they flip on it. I've been basically picking the Mustangs every single week on their lines because they're just blowing straight through them with that high-powered offense they've been using this season.
And Jared, I'm guessing that you're just trying to make up ground in the pick'em.
I understand that. I mean, you look at SMU, their offense has been unbelievable. But here's the thing, Duke's defense has not exactly been like crap. They could possibly keep SMU in check. And at the end of the day, SMU does have to go down to Durham on a Saturday night. The crowd should be rocking, actually, because the students should be done studying for the day and they take a little breather from their studies and come watch this game because we all know Duke loves to study, unless it's men's basketball season. At that point, all bets are off. I think at this point, this is not a gimme game for the Mustangs. I think this is a trap game. I really like Duke. I think Duke can pull this off. I like definitely, worst case scenario, cover the spread, but I think Duke gets the outright win because what is this conference known for, guys? What has this conference been known for since we started this podcast? It is the all chaos conference because something's going to change here. Something's going to flip this all upside down. It looks like it's Clemson, Miami, SMU. No one's considering Duke or Pitt. It's just something's going to make things different. Something's going to change everything up. And I think it starts Saturday night. I think Duke finds a way to hold on and beat the Mustangs. I think at the end of the day, we're going to be mentioning maybe the name of Malik Murphy just a little bit more, the quarterback for Duke, and how he has a big game against this SMU defense.
All right. Well, let's move on to our quickfire bets. I'm going to start off here. Florida State is just terrible this year. Absolutely terrible. They have to go down to Miami to play Miami, who is undefeated, who looks ridiculous in the way that they're able to hang on, the way that they're able to pull out ridiculous victories, the way that they just have the 13th, 14th, 15th man on the field in black and white every week. I'm kidding. But anyway, this is a giant spread. This is a 3 touchdown spread that's going on for Florida State Miami with a hook so that there's no chance of a push. I think Florida State is likely to backdoor cover this game. I think that Miami has not had quite as many truly blowout victories as one might think, given what they've been. Their blowouts have been against teams that are not in the ACC. Never mind what you may think of the quality of Tech, California, and Louisville. They have lost to Miami by a total of less than 20 points. So this is there's certainly room for Florida State to keep this one close. Now, Florida State is the worst team in the ACC that Miami has faced thus far, but backdoor cover on for Florida State is my bet on this one. Jared?
So, for the past 9 matchups in the Battle of the Techs rivalry, since 2013, they've met 9 times. Anyone want to guess, just real quick, how many times the home team has won?
This feels like you're going to say none.
It's close. Once. One time. 2017, Atlanta, Georgia Tech beat the Hokies 28-22. It's in Blacksburg this year. I'm not saying the Yellow Jackets are going to pull off the upset, but I think they easily cover the 7 on the hook. I think this is a tight game. The Battle of the Techs is an underrated rivalry. It's a rivalry I grew up in as a college fan, as a Virginia Tech alumni. This game does mean a lot to both programs, believe it or not.
Jeez,
I think
I'm changing my pick now.
it is going to be a very tight game.
Jeff?
All right. And it wasn't this week there wasn't a lot left to go around for the pick this week, but for mine, if I have to pick something that's a little bit outside the box, but I think is interesting is Oregon State plays Cal in an out of conference matchup this week, and right now the line's Cal minus 9 points. I'm taking Oregon State in the +9 in this one. We talked a lot about Cal's close losses. I'm not seeing a lot out of the Golden Bears to make me feel comfortable with basically what amounts to a touchdown and a field goal spread in their games. Oregon State they're not. I mean, they're a fine team. They are certainly not a world beater, but they're 4-3. They're 4-3, and they've beaten some teams that are the same teams that Cal has played thus far on the season and with similar spread. So I think this is a game that I believe Cal probably comes out on top, but I think it's going to be closer than the 9 points. I don't feel Cal coming out on top by that spread.
I think that's a very good pick given what we know about Cal. That's it for the Virtual Tailgate. You can send your questions or comments to virtualtailgate@mediabullcrap.com.
And always remember these 3 rules. Never get less than 12 hours sleep.
Never play cards with a guy who has the same first name as a city.
And never get involved with a woman with a tattoo of a dagger on her body.
Stick to that. Everything else is cream cheese.
That's ball game.